recruiting, and in other efforts in service of the broader strategic objective. Okay. Religion and war. David Martin, who's an emeritus professor at sociology at the London School of Economics, is responding to a book by Richard Dawkins, a friend and ally of Hitchens. He says, from a sociological viewpoint, the role and nature of religion varies according to the kind of society in which it's present, and its relationship to warfare will likewise vary. That's why statements to the effect that religion causes war are not likely to be taken very seriously by sociologists. And we heard earlier today about Erwin Staub, the fellow who wrote about the causes of violence. Religion is only one factor among many in those cases. Martin continues to say, I know of no evidence to show that the absence of a religious factor in the contention of rival identities and incompatible claims leads to a diminution in the degree of enmity and ferocity. The contribution of religion has instead been of signal importance, and it's always been almost entirely directed to peaceful reconciliation internally and peace in foreign affairs. If Dawkins' arguments were correct, he says, then the separating out of believers and clergy from the general population ought to reveal them as major proponents of violence towards each other and violence in international affairs. This is far from being the case. The evidence does not bear out the contention. The case falls. Now, in fact, the cause of violence is what it always is, and it happens with religious people and non-religious people. Lust, greed, irritability, urge to power, all those sorts of things. Religion is a factor, but not a major factor. As my son put it to me a few weeks ago, Hitchens seems to be saying that without religion we could all just hold hands and sing Kumbaya. Except that, of course, we couldn't sing Kumbaya because it's a religious song. Now, there's so many other things that could be said about this, but I won't say them. Mercifully, it's coming to an end. But one claim that he makes in particular that I found striking, he says that Islam has ruined the culture of Persia. The culture of Persia is Islamic. The greatest writers of the Persian tradition are Islamic writers. The Persian miniature paintings are Islamic paintings. The greatest poet of Persia is Jalaluddin Rumi, who's an Islamic mystical poet. His book, the Mathnavi, is often called the second Quran or the Persian Quran. If you get rid of Islam, you get rid of every major poet in the Persian tradition. You get rid of every major bit of Persian architecture. You get rid of every bit of Persian artistry and painting. Statements like this are abysmally ignorant. It's just astonishing. Well, let me just say, God is not great. Some of you I've discovered haven't even heard of the book. That's great. More power to you. It's been on the bestseller list, but fine. But it's crammed to the bursting point with errors. And the ironic thing, the interesting thing, the striking thing about this is the errors are always in Hitchens' favor. Now, if you have an accountant or a cashier or something, you know, who makes errors, and they're sort of random. Sometimes one way, sometimes another way. You think, okay, that's all right. But if the bank teller is always making the error in her favor, begin to smell a rat. Well, I smell a rat in this case. The errors are, there is not a disputed fact or a fact that struck me as questionable that I've checked in Hitchens' book that is where it has not turned out that he's wrong. Every single time. It reminds me a very famous review of a book by Lillian Hellman. She wrote a memoir called Scoundrel Time, and it was reviewed by her longtime arch-enemy, Mary McCarthy, who was on a television show, PBS, the old Dick Cavett show. And at one point, this is in 1979, when he asked her about the book Scoundrel Time, she said, famously, and this led to a lawsuit, "Every word Lillian Hellman writes is a lie, including and the." Well, I'm not saying that Hitchens is lying, but I am saying there's virtually not a sentence in this book that is true. It's absolutely astonishing. He's become a millionaire with this book, which gives me hope. By reputation, I'm a constant liar too, so the future is bright. Anyway, it's a remarkable thing, and I've said before that I think that the secular critique of Mormonism, of religious belief, is a much more serious one now than the evangelical critique, which we've been experiencing for so long. And I thought when this book first came out, this was going to be a formidable challenge. This is a remarkable fellow. He writes well. He's written extensively. He's traveled the world. He's a formidable presence on television. It is truly disappointing, or in another sense, really exhilarating to realize how bad the case is. Thank you very much.